guys, welcome back to Chef Monica's Kitchen. Let's talk chicken in the kitchen, or kitchen in the chicken, whatever. So, to be quite frank, I think chicken's the most boring of all the meats out there. There's just not that much flavor to it. So it does take a little bit of finesse to make it taste like anything. I'm not super fond of fried chicken. I know, sacrilege, especially where we live, but I do like to roast my chicken, and especially when it comes to chicken breasts, they can tend to get dry really quickly. So here's kind of a quick little tip to making them stay nice and moist. First things first, I like to drizzle them with a little bit of olive oil.
These are boneless, skinless.
Boneless, skinless chicken breast. You can also do this with chicken thighs. You can also do this with like a whole cut up chicken. If you want to, you can leave the skin on, up to you. But this is just simple chicken breasts. I know they're the most inexpensive and they're the most universally liked. So, and we will season those with a pinch of salt and pepper. And I actually don't even need to really season both sides, and I'll show you why in a moment. Fresh cracked pepper. Garlic powder. You can actually use whatever seasonings you want. If you wanted to make this sort of Moroccan flavored, you could use Ras El Hanout seasoning. If you wanted to make this more Indian flavored, you could use curry. If you wanted to make this more Mexican flavored, you could use like a taco seasoning or chili powder, one of those things. Smoked paprika again, and our herb de Provence or Italian seasoning again. And now, here's the reason I don't bother with seasoning the other side. I'm going to take some white wine and pour it into the pan, or baking dish I should say. Roughly about halfway up the pan, if you can see that, maybe even a little more than that. So basically I create sort of a marinade here. Ideally, if you want this to be really, really nice and tender, you will stick this in the refrigerator and let it marinate for 2-3 hours. What will happen during that point is that the acid from the wine will react to the fibers in the protein, the chicken there, and it'll help to break them down so that when you cook them, it becomes nice and moist inside. Also what happens is while this is baking, that liquid in there is going to create steam, so it almost creates like a steam bath, and it keeps the chicken sort of moist by doing that as well.
Is this called braising when you're in the...
Technically it could be called braising, as opposed to poaching, which means you're completely submerging it in the liquid. Good question, peanut gallery. So, as I said, if you wanted to refrigerate it 2-3 hours, make sure that you remove it from the refrigerator at least 20 minutes or so before you actually stick it in the oven so that it comes to room temperature. If you take cold meat and put it into a hot pan or into a hot oven, it actually seizes up and it tends to then stay drier and a little bit tougher. So we don't want that to happen. If you don't have that much time, then you can do a quick braise, or a quick marinade. Leave it on the countertop for, again, 20 minutes or so. Gives it a little bit of a chance for that acid to work on the protein fibers, and then you can stick it in the oven. 375 degrees till it's 160 degrees. You can use a thermometer to measure the temperature, or just if you are good at feeling what meat feels like when it's done by touch, if you kind of do like a loose fist and you touch it right here in the little pad, that's kind of rare. Slightly medium fist, that's sort of medium, and a tight fist would be well done. We want this to be well done because there's nothing grosser than uncooked chicken. Plus, we don't want to give you salmonella. That's a whole different bag of worms. Bag of worms? Can of worms. Whatever. We're gonna put this in the oven and we'll check back with you when it's done. So, just real quick, because I forgot to mention this, when it comes to the chicken, you do want to rotate it a couple times throughout the cooking process, not at any like specific interval, but just to give it a chance to bake evenly on both sides. So I can show you what it looks like up to this point. We've got the two breasts in there, and you can kind of see that all that liquid is sort of simmering in there. So let me grab my little tongs here. And I just want to rotate them so that everything gets sort of evenly cooked, evenly marinated, evenly browned.
Did it reseason the other side?
I don't, because after I'm going to flip this back over again, so it kind of just keeps marinating itself. We'll put it back in. This is definitely not quite ready yet. You can still see some of the pink in there, so we want to leave it in there for probably another 15 or 20 minutes or so. As you can see, we are at exactly 160 degrees. Woohoo! So now, the most crucial part of this is that we need to cover this with aluminum foil and let them rest. If I were to take these chicken breasts out and then cut into them right now, all the juices would run right out of them and they'd become bone dry again. That would totally defy the whole point of marinating them in the first place. So we're gonna grab a little sheet of aluminum foil, just seal these up real tight. Let them rest for anywhere from, I'm gonna say 15 to 20 minutes, at which point we'll go ahead and I'll take them out and I'll slice into them so you can see how nice and juicy they are. Okie dokie, let me show you the finished product. So we have our lovely little chicken breast. It's still a tiny bit warm, but I'm gonna go ahead and just cut in there. And you can see how moist it is. It just goes right through. Juicy, see that? Perfectly juicy. It's juicy. And you always want to kind of cut it at an angle against the grain of the meat, and that gives it a little bit more tenderness as well. And there is your perfectly baked chicken, moist and delicious every single time.
I'm ready to eat.
Enjoy.